Imagine a world bathed in the warm, golden light of an African sun. Close-up, golden grasses glowing, sunbeams piercing a canopy. This is not the Africa we know today. It is a world from a time long past, 3.2 million years ago. Mist rising over a wide river at dawn, dew on broad leaves and blooming flowers. The great savannas are just beginning to spread, vast woodlands, lush riverine forests. This was the Pliocene epoch, a time of incredible life and immense natural drama. A landscape alive with strange and magnificent creatures. The climate was warmer and wetter than our modern era, rivers far wider than modern ones carved the land, marshy floodplains teeming with life, trees with broad, waxy leaves formed dense canopies, deep shade, sun-dappled clearings. Strange, unfamiliar grasses grew in thick tufts, providing endless grazing for the herds that roamed this prehistoric paradise. It was a world in constant motion, a vibrant, dynamic stage for life's grand play. This was a time before widespread ice ages had begun to reshape our planet. The poles were not yet locked in the deep freeze we are familiar with. Sea levels were higher. This global warmth created a stable, fertile environment where life could flourish. The Pliocene landscape of Africa was a gallery of natural wonders. The plains. The forests were home to animals that would dwarf their modern relatives. Imagine herds of Deinotherium close on a Deinotherium showing massive-sized tusks curving downwards from the lower jaw using tusks to strip bark from trees. They moved like walking mountains through the woodlands, immense footsteps shaking the ground. Three-toed horses, Hipparions, galloped in great herds close on three-toed hooves, coats shimmering in sunlight across the grasslands. This was a world where size truly mattered, a kingdom ruled by giants. The rivers. The lakes were just as crowded. Enormous crocodiles lurking just beneath the surface, eyes barely breaking the water, silhouettes showing massive jaws and length. They were the undisputed rulers of the waterways, ancient predators unchanged for millions of years. Hippos in great numbers at dusk. Now let us turn our attention to one of the most remarkable inhabitants of this ancient world. It was not a cat, nor was it an elephant. It was a pig. But this was no ordinary pig. This was Metridiochirus, the giant saber-tusked boar. Picture a wild boar of today. Imagine it scaled up to the size of a small cow, weighing perhaps up to 500 kilograms. It stood tall and powerful, muscular neck, broad, formidable shoulders. Its body was covered in coarse, bristly hair, shades of brown-black, providing camouflage in the dappled forest light. The most striking feature was its tusks. It possessed two pairs. The lower tusks were immense, curving upwards and outwards like gleaming scimitars. These could be incredibly long, sharp, deadly. The upper tusks were truly unique. Instead of growing up or out, they grew straight down like saber-toothed fangs. These downward-pointing tusks were thick and strong, forming devastating weapons. What could possibly sustain such a colossal and well-armed creature? The giant saber-tusked boar was an omnivore, but its primary diet likely consisted of plant matter. Its powerful snout and strong neck muscles made it an expert digger. It would have spent much of its day foraging on the forest floor, using its leathery nose and front hooves to root through the soft, damp earth. It was searching for the buried treasures of the Pliocene, nutritious roots, tubers, bulbs. These underground storage organs were packed with energy, providing the fuel this giant needed to maintain its massive body. Its teeth tell a fascinating story about its diet. The large molars at the back of its jaw were covered in thick enamel and had complex, ridged surfaces, well suited for grinding tough, fibrous vegetation. A typical day for the giant saber-tusked boar began with the rising sun. It likely lived in small family groups known as sounders, much like modern wild pigs. These groups offered safety in numbers, multiple sets of eyes and ears scanned for danger. They emerged from resting places, maybe a dense thicket or a shallow depression in the ground, and began their relentless search for food. Morning air filled with soft grunts and the sounds of rooting through leaf litter. Life balanced finding food and avoiding becoming food. The Pliocene crawled with predators. Saber-toothed cat, Dinofelis, saber-toothed cat, Meganterion. A lone boar, especially a young one or an old one, was a tempting target. Sounders had to stay vigilant, using keen hearing and a powerful sense of smell. A sudden rustle in tall grass. The magnificent tusks of Metridiochirus were its defining feature, but their exact purpose has long been a subject of fascination and debate. The sharp, upward-curving lower tusks were clearly formidable weapons for defense. When threatened by a predator, the boar could have used these tusks with devastating effect. A swift upward thrust of its powerful head could inflict deep, slashing wounds capable of deterring or even killing a large cat. These were its primary tools for fending off the dangers that lurked in the Pliocene shadows, a clear and unambiguous statement of its ability to fight back. The downward-pointing upper tusks, however, are more of a puzzle. They seem ill-suited for combat in the same way as the lower tusks. One compelling theory is that they were used for display. A male with larger, more impressive tusks may have been seen as stronger and healthier, making him more attractive to females and more intimidating to rival males. The tusks could have been a visual signal of genetic fitness, a billboard advertising his dominance. Battles between males for mating rights might have involved more pushing and showing off than actual fighting with these particular tusks. Another possibility is that the upper tusks had a practical, non-combat function. Some scientists suggest they could have been used as anchors. The giant saber-tusked boar did not roam this ancient landscape alone. It shared its world with a creature that was, in its own way, just as remarkable, our own early ancestor, Australopithecus afarensis. This is the same species as the famous Lucy fossil. These early hominins stood upright, walking on two legs, a revolutionary adaptation that let them see over the tall grasses. The expanding savanna. They were small, a little over a meter tall. They lived in groups, foraging, fruits, nuts, seeds. The interactions between these two species would have been fascinating to witness. For the most part, they likely ignored each other. A group of Australopithecus would have given a sounder of giant boars a very wide berth. The sheer size and formidable tusks of Metridiocurus made it an animal to be respected and avoided. An adult boar was far too large and dangerous to be hunted by these hominins. Their simple stone tools were no match. Everything we know about the magnificent saber-tusked boar comes from the fragments it left behind, its fossilized bones and its fossilized teeth. These whispers from the past are discovered by paleontologists, who carefully excavate them in the field, from ancient riverbeds and lake deposits in places like Ethiopia's Great Rift Valley. Each fossil is a piece of a giant jigsaw puzzle. A single tooth can tell us about the animal's diet, while a leg bone can reveal its size and show how it moved. It is through this painstaking work that we can reconstruct a picture of this lost creature. The fossils of Metridiocurus are often found alongside those of many other animals, giving us a snapshot of the entire ecosystem. When scientists find boar fossils in the same geological layer as the fossils of saber-toothed cats, early hominins, and extinct elephants, they can confirm that all these creatures lived at the same time and in the same place. This helps us build a more complete and accurate picture of the Pliocene world, understanding the complex web of interactions between predator and prey, and between competitors for the same resources. However, the fossil record also tells us the end of its story. As the climate continued to change, becoming cooler and drier,